In this video we are going to take a closer look at the April Deathwatch tournament results, including the China Warhammer City Tournament, the Out of the Furnace 4 Return to Firestorm, as well as the official Warhammer Fest itself. Over the course of the video, we will go through all the relevant results and lists in an attempt to find out how the Deathwatch is doing in these last few months of 9th edition. For the final part, I will offer my personal conclusions and a quick wrap-up.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer, and I will be guiding you through this video.
Before we dive right into the tournament results, a quick word on Deathwatch tournament attendance for this month. While Deathwatch has always been a niche faction, and given the poor win rates in Arks of Omen so far, it is of no surprise that attendance remains low, especially for the first half of April, before the new Balance Dataslate came into effect. Nonetheless, I think for this month we have a clear trend of quality over quantity, as we will see in just a moment. With 10th edition practically around the corner, this will be my last tournament coverage for 9th edition. Coincidentally, I released my first tournament coverage video back in April 2021 and have been steadily looking at our faction results for the past 2 years, which has been both an immensely fun and educational experience. For anyone still getting competitive games in during these remaining few months, I think this episode has several good examples of how to get the most out of the Deathwatch until everything is being shuffled anew in 10th edition. I will be seeing you guys then. Having said that, let's have a look at the first tournament, the China Warhammer City Tournament, an event featuring 57 players over 5 rounds. This one was played prior to the release of the Balance Dataslate. Here we have a single Deathwatch player, Seth, better known as DeathwatchSH on our Discord, going for 1, ending up on rank 9. His matchups were wins against Space Wolves, Clowns, Demons and World Eaters, with the 5th and final game being a loss against Inari. Looking at his list, for HQs, he brought along a captain on bike with nowhere to hide and the Dominus Aegis relic. We then have a jump-pack chaplain with the beacon, as well as a plain librarian with our standard competitive powers, Primorphic Resonance and Fortified with Contempt. For troops, he ran double for his kill teams, one with 5 Outriders and the other with 4, both used combat squads, making use of infantry bikes. For those wondering, he split the 5 Outriders into 3 and 2s in order to keep them all as infantry. The unfortunate part is that the combat squad with only 2 Outriders will be demoted to T4 only, but that problem will solve itself the moment the first intercessor gets killed. Anyway, we then also have an Indomitor kill team with 4 Plasma Inceptors and a single Aggressor, very pricey but also very killy, as well as a single Proteus kill team in a modified Costello configuration, and then finally a Spectrus kill team with 4 Las Fossil Eliminators and a single Incursor with Haywire Mine. The latter kill team will also be played with combat squads. To round the list up, he then brought the Primaris Chief Apothecary with Selfless Healer and the Tomb, as well as a basic squad of Bolter Inceptors. For those who have been following Deathwatch closely since its release of the 9th edition supplement, DeathwatchSH can in many ways be considered a pioneer when it came down to running competitive Primaris kill team compositions, and he was one of the few who actually experimented with them back in the days. Ironically, much of his original kill teams, like the Infantry Outriders or the Plasma Inceptor Indomitor, have now been seeing a comeback in the light of the loss of the AUR, as well as the Monitorum Field Manual points discounts on datasheets like the Outriders. Either way, it is fairly impressive how he managed to pull off such a great result prior to the latest Balance Dataslate. Moving on to the second tournament, the Out of the Furnace 4 Return to Firestorm, an event featuring 44 players over 5 rounds. Here we have a single Deathwatch player, Josh Clark, going 3-2, ending up on rank 16. His matchups were as following. Round 1 a win against Black Legion, followed by 2 losses against Space Wolves and Imperial Guard, and then round 4 and 5 wins against Salamanders and GSC. Looking at his list, similar to what he already played last month at the Southampton GT, he went full Firstborn, with a Jump-Pack Chaplain with the Beacon, a Terminator Chief Librarian, and a Watchmaster with Ties That Bind, Optimized Priority and Tomb for HQs. For troops, he then rocked 5 Deathwatch Veterans and 3 Proteus kill teams, 2 of which were loaded with a Black Shield and Terminators, and the third with infantry bikes, which unfortunately have been falling a bit out of fashion since the last Monitorum Field manual points changes. We then also have a Chapter Champion, a Deathwatch Terminator squad and a drop pod. Overall, this list is making full use of all the free war gear and he has plenty of upset. Josh also mentioned that he spent the full 5 turns in Assault Doctrine, something that the Deathwatch can now uniquely do thanks to the update to our mission tactics in the latest Balance Dataslate. Josh, congratulations on finally breaking that 2-3 streak. Moving on to the third and final tournament, the Warhammer Fest, a massive event featuring 360 players over 6 to 9 rounds using a bracket system. Here we have a full 7 Deathwatch players, out of which 2 players stand out in particular. First we have Mikael Klangeby, a name well known to the Deathwatch community, going 7-1 and unfortunately unable to play the 9th game, ending up on rank 21, an absolutely amazing result. We then also have Chokul Johansson, going 7-2, ending up on rank 22, which is also fantastic. Mikael lost round 1 against Sisters, followed by 7 wins against Imperial Fists, another Deathwatch player, Space Dwarfs, Chaos Space Marines, Orcs, Imperial Knights and Craft Worlds. What a streak! On the other hand, Chokul won against Imperial Guard, Tau and the Sisters, then lost against Space Wolves, before scoring 3 more wins against Nits, Craft Worlds and Craft Worlds, followed by a loss against Craft Worlds and another win against Imperial Knights. That's a lot of Craft Worlds. Looking at Mikael Klangby's list, this is pretty much the same list as he already successfully played last month at the Games of Westeros 14, where he also managed an amazing 4-1. The main differences here are that he put the Vindicari Assassin into the Arks of Omen detachment, and that he had to run the Judiciary without Oathkeeper. This is due to a misconfiguration of Warlord traits that he used to have in his previous list. The deal here is that the dueling up on Warlord traits through the Deathwatch unique stratagem, a Vigil Unmatched, only works on Deathwatch Warlord traits, aka one cannot put both Lord of Deceit and Psychic Mastery on the Phobos Librarian at the same time, because neither is a Deathwatch exclusive Warlord trait. But anyway, with that correction in mind, for HQs, he ran the Phobos Captain now with Lord of Deceit, Jump-Pack Chaplain with the Beacon, Phobos Chief Librarian with Psychic Mastery, and the Librarian in Terminator armor. The double Librarians is giving him access to an easy Psychic secondary, which now with the Balance Dataslate changes and improved call order, means that he should pretty much have 3 comparably easy secondaries under his control regardless of matchup. For troops, he went with 3 Proteus kill teams, 2 of which were his signature Klangeby-style kill teams, and the third rocking 5 Deathwatch Terminators, which he can combat squad off as variable durable OPSEC unit. He then also went with double Spectres kill teams, both running 4 Las Fossil Eliminators that he can pair with the Comms Array Infiltrator, and then the other 4 Infiltrators go with the single Incursor with Haywire Mine. The Comms Array over the Helix Gauntlet in this case makes sense, because he's running the Phobos Captain, means the Eliminators will always get the hit rerolls from the Captain. Good stuff. For elites, we have a Judiciary without the Oathkeeper due to the mentioned Warlord trade restrictions, as well as some Servitors, which are excellent chaff, can screen, block or do actions. Overall, great list and congratulations on yet another amazing result. You certainly have been carrying Deathwatch in 9th edition. Then for Chokul Johansson's list, here we see a slightly different approach. For HQs, we have a Chief Librarian, a Primaris Chaplain on bike with the Beacon, as well as a Watchmaster with Nowhere to Hide and the Tomb. For troops, we then have 4 comparably cheap Proteus kill teams in a modified Costello configuration. To round the list up, we then have a bit of a novelty with 3 minimum sized Desolation Squads, all of which rock the Vanguard launcher on the Sergeant, and I think these really benefit from both the changes to mission tactics, as well as the Watchmaster babysitting them with rerolls and of course nowhere to hide. For anyone willing to invest heavily into these kinds of models, I think this is certainly one way to run Deathwatch for these last few weeks of 9th edition. On the other hand, if you don't have these models available yet, I would also caution against investing too much into a single datasheet at this point, with 10th edition practically being around the corner. While covering the other 5 Deathwatch players would be too much for this single episode, I think an honorable mention is in order anyway. Kudos for staying with the faction. All in all, while Deathwatch April tournament attendance continues to be low, I think it is fitting that this last tournament coverage episode for 9th edition has both the appearance of DeathwatchSH, a pioneer for Primaris-oriented lists in the early stages of 9th edition, and of course Mikael Klangeby, who I believe performed the overall best with Deathwatch over the entirety of 9th edition. As far as I'm concerned, 2 Deathwatch players going X1 and a third going X2 at a large event within a single month is amazing, and I think each of them deserves special recognition. DeathwatchSH managing this with the old rules, and both Mikael and Chokul performed well at the large prestige event. While we were already well aware of the tech in Mikael's list, and much of what DeathwatchSH played was early 9th edition tech, I think Chokul also demonstrated that Deathwatch can put the Desolation Squad to good use. After all, it's not just about kill teams, even though these of course play a major role in all 3 lists. As I was already mentioning in my Balance Dataslate review, I think Deathwatch is now in a very good position with secondaries, which has a major potential impact on their performance. And as Josh demonstrated with his list, we can also benefit from our ability to run any doctrine for 5 turns if we wanted to. All in all, I think any of these lists make for a great inspiration for any Deathwatch player looking to do well these last few months of 9th edition. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at Deathwatch April tournament results, including the China Warhammer City Open, the Out of the Furnace 4 return to Firestorm, as well as the official Warhammer Fest. What stands out here of course are the results of DeathwatchSH going 4-1, Mikael Klangeby going an amazing 7-1, and also Chokul Johansson going 7-2, especially when considering the overall performance in Arks of Omen prior to the latest Balance Dataslate. All lists are of course linked in the description. Furthermore, with 10th edition practically around the corner, this will be my last tournament coverage in 9th edition. Having started pretty much 2 years ago, it was both great fun and a big learning experience for myself. I hope you guys took as much inspiration from these lists as I certainly did. See you all in 10th edition. So that's it for the Deathwatch April tournament results. What do you guys think about these particular lists and results? And are you going to make any major changes for these last few weeks of 9th edition? Any predictions for how the Deathwatch is going to do in 10th? Let me know in the comments. Then finally, if you made it this far and I still have your attention, if you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. For that, I have both a Ko-fi as well as a Patreon page, links are in the description. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. As always, thank you very much for watching guys, your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video, give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.